Commodity futures have benefited from tremendous liquidity in the market. And just this week, I heard that soybean prices are approaching the all-time high of $17 a bushel. Some believe that due to dry weather in the Midwest and possible crop failure, the sky's the limit, and commodity traders are betting on the worst. And what about the rest of us, those who will suffer from higher prices and food shortages? Well, I think it's safe to say that commodity traders, they don't give beans about us. Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Conservative Coffee Hour, we're trying to sort out the political mess that we all seem to be in this country. That seems to be the only thing we all can agree on these days, that we're all in a mess. But instead of betting on crop failure, we're trying to find ways to capitalize on things that actually benefit people. Like many people, I'm reluctant to engage in any substantive conversations because in recent times, the range of conversational topics in society has grown increasingly narrow. I live in downtown Chicago, where all we're really allowed to talk about is the weather and what color the flowers are on Michigan Avenue. At church, we're only allowed to discuss the pre-prescribed political script about race, gender, and sexism. That's why every Saturday it's so good to check in with guests on topics that really mean something in people's lives. Last week on Conservative Coffee Hour, we talked about the results of the Illinois primary. GOP winners included Darren Bailey, Amy Slavi, and Tom DeVore. Most of these were not the first choice of the GOP party per se, but they turned out to be the first choice of many conservative-leaning voters. A Democrat election judge on election day asked me how it was that the GOP seemed to have such a cast of characters on the ballot. I said it's because, for good or for worse, the GOP is a grassroots party and does allow people to emerge from the bottom up. The Democrat Party would never take that chance. It was 4th of July weekend this week, and we celebrated our nation's independence. It's mildly annoying when people refer to our nation as a democracy, especially on the 4th of July. The concept of a representational republic seems increasingly foreign to the average person. If we take a step back, we can see that we are indeed represented, but it's by a narrative that's been written. And that script has been prepared for both the liberal and conservative viewpoints, and it's simply being played out on our behalf. None of us are actually involved in the narrative. We just think we are. At the polling place I was working at on election day, while we were continuing to operate the polls, a drag queen story hour was taking place in the room next to the polling place. And when I went to the men's room, I found there were no paper towels in the men's room, but there were plenty of tampons available. Both Republican and Democrat judges working the polling place that day seemed equally bewildered by it all. An additional nuance that came up in conversation on the Saturday call was election integrity. How was it that some candidates that came out of nowhere at the last minute were able to win their races? Just when we feel we've gotten a handle on how little we're involved in the narrative and how this affects our lives, I don't think any of us are comforted by the notion that our elections might in some way be compromised. I was particularly disappointed that I allowed myself to be dissuaded from voting for candidate Peggy Hubbard, because for whatever reason, I like Peggy. Miss Hubbard was described as a joke on this Conservative Coffee Hour, and I think that's part of the narrative that we can change. Whenever we hear ourselves being played by being the audience to disparaging remarks of any kind, we need to call that out and be mindful of it. Just like the commodity traders, it's all to the benefit of someone, but it's probably not us. We need to follow our own discernment and vote with our gut and do what our minds and our discernment and gut is telling us to do, and ignore some of the voices out there, which are in fact probably working against us, and in most cases, don't give beans about us. If you would like to join us at Conservative Coffee Hour, I've included my email in the description of this video. Conservative Coffee Hour is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.